Good morning, guys, and welcome to episode 99 of Costa Rica Real Estate and Investments. Our next podcast will be episode 100, the big one. I'm going to make a few changes in that podcast with regards to the intro and also the exit introduction videos. So it should be pretty interesting for that one. Rolling in another 100, so every 100 I'll change that. You guys are probably thinking you'll be waiting a while for that next 100 to come around, but I'm sure it'll come around very, very quickly. I wanted to say a big thank you for everyone for their support, all the people reaching out, saying that they really enjoy the podcasts and also giving us some topics to also cover there as well. Today's podcast is rather unique. We're interviewing Jorge Suarez Mattarita. He's a hydrogeologist. We're going to be talking about water sources, aquifers, and options that are available for water to be able for people to get concessions on water. Also talking rivers, springs, waterfalls, and also wells as well. So this one's going to be interesting. I don't think we've gone into that much detail about that. So remember, if you buy a piece of property without water on and you can't get water to it, you're basically buying a nice piece of, animal grazing land. So just be aware of that, guys. I think it's really important to do due diligence on property. Even if it has a water source on it, to do the due diligence, because as you'll see with Jorge here, we'll probably talk about some setbacks at some point. Remember, guys, if you need any help or any assistance with any projects here in Costa Rica, even if that's finding the right project for you, whether that's land or property, condo, also project managing the build as well. We actually have some architects and engineers here on staff and project managers as well. We're building various homes in sizes and also cost here in Costa Rica, all over the country, from the Osa Peninsula all the way to the northern areas up there by the Four Seasons as well. So if you have any questions for me, you can get in contact with us, info@investingcostarica.com. That's info@investingcostarica.com. But let's get straight into the podcast. Good morning, Jorge. How are you doing?
Thank you very much, Richard.
It's an absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast, especially someone with so much knowledge about water. And I'm interested to find out even more deeper what a hydrologist does as well. So,
no, thanks to you. As I say, I'm a fan of your podcast. I'm Costa Rican, but I listen to it because, I work with many people, many business people, expats, and your podcast, I thought it's very accurate for the Costa Rican reality. So congratulations for that.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, as I said, it's a pleasure to have you on here. You are Costa Rican yourself. The last 2.5 years, I suppose it's 2.5 years now, have been pretty crazy here in the pandemic. But what has surprised you specifically in the last 6 months, and what trends do you think are here to stay, Jorge?
Thank you. Well, I would like to say something about really general. That surprised me in the last six months. Despite the presidential shift in the politics in Costa Rica, and despite the global pandemic, despite the Russian-Ukrainian war, the global inflation, the growing instability in the countries in Latin America, like Colombia, Peru, Honduras, despite all that surroundings, Costa Rica is still in peace and very stable, and it's open for business as usual.
Fantastic. Well, Jorge, maybe you can explain what a hydrogeologist does, if you don't mind me asking. As a lot of us listening here, even myself, would like to know a little bit further about what you do.
Okay, great. I studied at first geography, like digital cartography, remote sensing, and geographical information systems. But then I studied a master's in hydrogeology, which is the understanding of the aquifers, of the groundwater. Yeah. So I studied at first in Costa Rica, then in Germany, a little bit in Brazil, and so on. But all around the world is about the same. The water that sits below the surface. And the problem is that not too many people get to understand because you cannot see it. So there has to be a lot of equipment and technical methodology to understand the aquifer system, because it's so important. From the aquifers, we get the springs, the natural springs, the water springs. They're not superficial water from the rain. They come from down the earth into the surface. So nacientes or natural springs, those are groundwater. For drilling wells or dogging wells by hand, it's also about groundwater. Recharge from the surface water, interaction between rivers, that's also groundwater. In one word, it's hydrogeology. In general, it's more like a water resources management because we have to see and think many things. But it's about the same everywhere, as I say, the world. Yeah.
Well, I mean, water is very important in this country. I mean, we do have an abundance of it, but a few years back, the laws changed. But also is the availability of water to get a registered water source, whether that be the Ayan or Sada, whether you dig a well off a river. I've even heard of people attempting to get, water letters off rain capture, which is not an easy thing to do. I know local municipalities aren't a big fan of it, but I mean, what services are you offering to people? I mean, what projects are you working on? Just so that anyone listening here can have an idea of like, oh, that's what I would use Jorge for.
Okay, thank you. Well, the most urgent projects in the moment is the due diligence. Yeah, when investors are going to buy a property, they have to, make the due diligence and know everything about the property before buying it. Because once you buy it, there is a big problem. So usually in Costa Rica, there is a lot of rivers, there is a lot of rain. Of course, we're tropical. There is a lot of mountains, and the interaction between superficial water, rainwater, and the rivers, and the groundwater from the aquifers it's very fuzzy. Not many people know about that, but there is laws about it, and you have to make setbacks or protection zones. So when, let's say, an expat or somebody from Europe wants to buy a property here, usually they do their due diligence through a lawyer, but also through a topographer. And those people are going to be the first ones to see, oh, I think you got some sun water in your property. So right now, the water is not really about getting the water, potable water, but mostly about the setbacks and protection zones that are cutting the areas of buildable areas from the
So you're
lots.
talking about like an INBU study for setbacks on rivers, etc.
Exactly. The thing is that if you go to the government, they take so long. And there are so many institutions to know that setback. So we want to do it in just like 2-3 weeks. So I go there, I fly a drone, I make a map, I see where the forest is, where the rivers are, where the springs. Is that a real spring, or is that maybe a seasonal spring? Because if you have a permanent spring, water spring, it's 100 meters setback. So goodbye your property. But if we can make sure, if we can scientifically say that that spring is seasonal, then it's only a 60 meter setback.
Okay. But could you also get theoretically, if you had a large piece of land that did have a spring on it, could you get a concession on that spring for water for your property?
Oh, yes, yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay.
So, there are many, there are 3 ways, let's say, or 3 areas to get the water letter. The first one, if you're in urban areas, the urban areas usually have an aqueduct like AIA, or in Heredia, the SPH, and other medium towns or cities are the municipalities. See? In rural towns, then we got the asadas. The asadas is the rural aqueducts owned by the neighbors in the surroundings of that place. But there are some properties or some places there is no aqueducts, no institution, no nothing, just the forest and the wild. And maybe people like that, but there's no water. And you can have maybe a spring water that you can have a concession, or maybe you have a river going through your property, or if you have an aquifer down there, then you can drill a well to get the water for your property. Those are like.
Well, let's talk about drilling wells, because typically there are 2 different types of wells here, right? There's an artisanal well and there's a perforated well. I mean, what is the difference between the 2? What is the process? What is the cost? I mean, if somebody's looking at a piece of land that does not have, a registered water source and they want to put their own well on the property, I mean, what are those 2 different types of wells, and how much is the cost and the time frame to get them?
Okay. Yeah, well, the pozo artesanal, which is a well dug by hand, crafted, it requires no permission at all. So you can do it right away. But it's only, the law says it's only specific for one house. So you cannot have it pozo artesanal or a well dug by hand for a condominium, let's say, or something like that, because there is not going to be enough of water in quality and quantity from that shallow dug by hand well.
Yep.
Yeah? In the other hand, then we got the drilled by machines wells. Those are the modern wells that you need to have a permission to get there, and it takes about 1 to 2 years to get the permission, to get the concession. It has a 40-meter setback or protection zone as diameter. It has very low vulnerability to pollution, because usually those are like 60 meters, 100 meters deep. So it has lower risk of natural hazards like climate change or pollution by the humans. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, yeah. So for an artisanal well, but you're going to need to request a concession on that well, no, in order to get the building permit.
Not really a concession, but a saying that you have your pozo artesanal in your property and that you're going to use it. Yeah. But the government won't say a thing. No. But it's true. You do need the governmental paper or the tramitology saying that you do have an artisanal well, so that you get your permissions at the municipality. Otherwise, they won't give you. Mm-hmm.
And I mean, how much does an artisanal well? Because I would say the majority of people listening to this podcast are maybe looking to build a home, or they have a larger piece of land they want to subdivide, and you can put an artisanal well on potentially all of these, these bits of land that you have. But I mean, how much does an artisanal well cost to dig?
Well, it is like maybe $4,000, $3,000, depending on how deep they have to go, how shallow the water level is. For example, if you are at the beach property, at the beachfront, then usually the water will be there like 30 centimeters or 1 meter below the surface. So it will be like an easy well. But if you live up a little up in the mountains, like in Santa Teresa mountains or somewhere where there's no aqueduct, that you need to drill artisanal well, because maybe it's forbidden to drill a machinery drilled well, then you have to go and pay a little more. It's by meter or by time, but those won't be much expensive than $4,000, $5,000 maybe.
So I mean, an artisanal well will probably cost $4 or $5. A perforated well, what are you looking? $20,000 to $30,000?
Okay, for a drilled well, the prices change depending on what you want for your property. So it depends on the diameter of the perforation and the equipment you're gonna need. But roughly, for a house, a 60-meter well drilled by machinery and with all the tramits will be probably around $30,000 to $40,000. Okay. Only the drilling will be like 10,000, like 15,000 maybe. But they don't tell you about all the tramitology you have to do, the hydrogeologists you have to pay, all the documents. And I'm going to explain maybe later how is the tramitology to get all these permits. So it can be like $40,000, $30,000. Okay. Wow. If you have like a condominium and you want to subdivide properties and then you need a bigger well, a bigger diameter, deeper. So it will be maybe 30 to 40,000 only the drill, but plus the pump, the electricity, and everything. I mean, it can get to $80,000, $100,000 depending.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, again, so just for anyone listening there, if you're building a home, an artisanal well is the way to go. But I mean, I think probably an easier thing. I mean, if you've got a river on your property, it's probably easier to get a concession on the river than it is to dig an artisanal well, no?
Well, for an artisanal well, there is no need for permission. You can do it. Yep. So it's very easy. The problem is if you have the water table where you can get it, where you can reach it. Because you can get so much by hand than, I don't know, like 50 meters, 20 meters is the deepest artisanal well. Yeah. If you get a concession from the river, that's very good. But then you have to look up the quality of the water. Then you have to implement, like bacteriological controls and physical chemical analysis and everything to get all the bacteria out of the river. Because in the rivers, all the flow from the upper parts of the basin is going to go there, either agricultural or urban or anything will go to the river. So pollution might be a thing. The best would be to have a spring. That would be the best scenario, because then you can catch it. You know it's clean because it's mostly coming from the underground, as we learned already. It's groundwater popping out by nature on the surface, and then you can take it there by gravity. No usage of electricity, pumps, or anything like that. And then you can have the water all over your property. That's very good.
but you're going to have a setback.
Yeah, I'm going to have a setback. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think it's very important when anyone's buying land with, rivers, waterfalls, nacientes, which are springs, to really do your due diligence and have someone like Jorge really kind of take a look at this. Because again, you could have a beautiful piece of land, guys, with these building planteles, but if the building planteles are in the setback, you're not going to get your approval in order to build on them. So I think very important to do that analysis and due diligence. So, yeah, I mean, I structured a deal a while back, Jorge, with some clients that were buying a large piece of land to do a project out in Cabuya, actually, to drill a perforated well. But because the property had no water and it was a kilometer from town, which had the water infrastructure. But we just structured the deal that, again, they would not close until they hit water. And unfortunately, they went down about 60 meters and still did not hit water. Not enough. So, it was determined it was better to walk away from it than to actually continue to invest in the drill. So, but it was better. I think it was better investing $25,000 than losing hundreds and hundreds and thousands of dollars, on buying a piece of land with no water, because land without water is useless.
Definitely.
It's expensive ocean view grazing, cattle grazing land.
Yeah. And that's, even if you can drill now, because since tourism exploded in Guanacaste areas and some other places in Costa Rica, there has been a prohibition for drilling. So now the government is very tight on environmental laws, and especially in water resources laws. So I can tell you, you cannot drill in Potrero, Flamingo, Tamarindo, Huacas, cannot drill in Ohochal, El Coco, Playa Hermosa. So all those 90s places that exploded with tourism and building and everything, they became a problem for the aquifer, because not only there was a few quantity of water, but the quality was being jeopardized by the water from the ocean. It's called water salt intrusion, and it gets the aquifer salty, the coastal aquifers, and only God can save those aquifers in thousands of years, because that's why they had to drill in Sardinal, in the other side of the mountains from Guanacaste,
and bring
because there was a bigger aquifer, and then pop the sweet water over to Ocotal and then Coco to give those hotels and those developments the water they needed.
I know. I have a 8-bedroom villa in Playa del Coco. So, but we've had the water meters and the water infrastructure for many years, but the water is always great there.
Yeah. And there are some other places, hot places now, like Samara, Nosara is going to be on the way. Punta Leona in Central Pacific, it's closed for drilling. And even here in Central Valley, even especially in Heredia, where you live, there is a prohibition for drilling. Only the big aqueducts, the institutionals, are allowed to drill until they make more studies and understand this groundwater that, as I told you, it's difficult to understand.
No, well, I mean, I think that's great from Costa Rica. I mean, it does slow down development, which sometimes is good. I'm very happy that Costa Rica's development is slow and sustainable in these analysis. I mean, they may take years to do sometimes, and TICO time here, 1 year means 3, maybe 4, maybe 5. But I think it's good because it keeps this country raw and authentic, and only the people that really want to do something in this country end up doing it. I mean, if you're looking to make a quick buck, I mean, it can be done, but it's just that, like, again, if you're trying to do a project here and make a quick buck, that's not going to happen. It's going to take years to do larger projects here. But I mean, in your opinion here, Jorge, because I think we've touched enough here on water. I mean, what are the beach towns that you think are really going to grow over the next 5 years?
Okay. Me myself, I have investments in Ohochal, as I heard you do have. I see Uvita, Ohochal, that region is growing, because the people that came before in Guanacaste, now they're saying, oh, maybe now this is to develop. I want to go to something more wild, more like 40 years before, and so they come down to the Osa Peninsula or Ohochal, Uvita, and yeah, but it's still, I mean, it's still in Guanacaste, you got Nosara and Santa Teresa. Those are the like surfing places, and I even helped for the construction of the environmental tramits for the Mel Gibson house in Santa Teresa. Yeah, so as you know, many stars are coming down to Santa Teresa, Nosara, those areas. These are very hot. But maybe right now, some people are listening to our podcast and not thinking about only the beach. Maybe they want some rural areas as well. You mentioned Dota. You have investments there. I think there is a good place. I've been called already many times there to search for water, look for aquifers, see where we can drill, because it's the same. It's not, there is not a big aqueduct there. Properties are in the mountains, and you have to mostly find your own water. And for those that want to come here and maybe stay near the city, I would say San Ramon, Grecia, Naranjo. Those are nice places. All the city, all Costa Ricans are going in that direction. There is tons of work coming down there. Many international companies are going to settle there. The Aeropuerto International airports around. And so I think those are good places to invest.
I agree. Well, Jorge, my last question for you. I mean, if you inherited $500,000 and had to invest it into a business or real estate in Costa Rica, what would you invest it in?
Okay, thank you. Well, I think I would take like 100K for equipment investment. I would like to have a drone that can make you the topography almost automatically for my business. We fly, it has LiDAR sensors and bunch of things. I will get some GPS and more equipment for those due diligence to make them faster, to have an efficient methodology for getting the client as fast as they can the information if there is a water setback or if there is no water, or all those that we talk about, and probably expanding into geotechnical soil testing. These are big projects in Costa Rica. Almost for every house or every construction, you will need to check the soil in Costa Rica. Most of the municipalities will ask you, even for a 2-floor house. So there is big money on the business there. It's great. But I would say maybe another 200 to buy another apartment here in Costa Rica, in San Jose. And another 200 would spend it in, I don't know, maybe some property for myself.
Where would you buy? Where would you buy, Jorge?
Well, I already have some in Ohochal, but I think I will buy something more for my retirement. Maybe Naranjo, San Ramon. Those are nice places because it's cooler than down the beach, but you are 1 hour away from the Central Pacific. And you're in the mountains, can be higher up in the mountains, plus volcano. It's just 30 minutes, 40 minutes. I think it's a good place.
Wow. I mean, if you were to buy at a beach destination beyond Ohochal, Jorge, or one or two, I mean, which ones would you be looking at and why?
Well, I think I love Santa Teresa, but I don't think it's gonna be enough money, the 500K, because Santa Teresa and Nosara are so hot now. It's so expensive. $1 million house is just going up, and land is it's a shortage of water and land. So, but yeah, for the realistic 500 to make business and in the beach, I would say South Pacific. Let's say Dominical or Uvita.
Okay. Fantastic.
Rounders.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the area that's, seeing a huge amount of growth is Uvita Ohochal. I mean, it has an excess of, again, great water infrastructure, great restaurants, easy to get to. And I mean, it's raw and authentic still. So yeah.
And great prices yet. I mean, you can, with 500, you can get a super huge property, even subdivided and do whatever you want. But in Guanacaste right now, with 500K, as I say, Nosara, Santa Teresa, you will get just a small property with a nice house.
Exactly. Well, Jorge, thank you very much again for your time. Anyone wanted to contact Jorge, I'll put all of his contact details in the descriptions here. But really appreciate you taking your time to come on the podcast and share your experience and knowledge with us, Jorge.
No, thanks to you for having me in your podcast. It's an honor. It's my pleasure.
Fantastic. Have a great day, Jorge.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Great podcast there from Jorge Suarez, guys. Now you know what a hydrogeologist is. It's actually quite a complex job. I know he does a lot of 3D imaging of land and also aquifers and waters. So I think anybody that needs a well or wants them to do some due diligence on some property with water on it, feel free to reach out to Jorge. All of his contact details are there in the description. Next time you hear from me, guys, will be episode 100. It has been recorded, so look out for that one. I can tell you it's going to be more a discussion on the future macro policy and outlook for Costa Rica as an investment destination, both for building, tourism, vacation rentals, homes, but also larger free trade zones and those kind of things as well. So looking at it more from a macro point of view, and also where Costa Rica is going in the next 3 to 5 years. So I think that might help any long-term investors in this country have a viewpoint of whether Costa Rica is still a good place to invest or not. But wanted to thank everyone for their support. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please give us a review. I love reading the reviews. It's just really nice to see that, again, some of the work that we put in over here is appreciated by a lot of you. And remember, you can also reach out to us as well. info@investingcostarica.com. That's info@investingcostarica.com. You can also go to the website, investingcostarica.com. You can also, believe you can WhatsApp us on that as well. So you can chat with us via WhatsApp as well. But anyway, until the next podcast, guys, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.